thing, but this here is the Prism Flex. I have it unplugged right now. There's a Wi-Fi 6 card internally, so you get the nice antennas with it. 12G SDI input and a loop out, HDMI 2.0, so you get full 4K, not 1.4 or anything like that. Dual gigabit Ethernet, so you can either add 2 different ISPs to this if you wanted to go and have, you know, Comcast and a PEP-Link or something like that to kind of have a robust network there. You can bond those together as well. So there's some options there for the gigabit. This one might say USB. I actually have a pre-production model because being a product manager here, I get all the cool toys first, whether they work or not. That's how it usually goes. But here we have USB-C 2.0s that can actually run the new Node 2 modems, LTE modems, and those can be bonded with Wi-Fi, gigabit Ethernet, so you can have up to 6 total sources bonded going up into core. This also has IFB connection, so there's a TRRS that'll give you IFB out and an analog input. SD cards are used for recording. Again, this will use any of your SDHC cards, and it's a simple just click in, click out. What else do we got on the back? Power, of course, and then on front we have a nice OLED display. So powering this thing up, you get your locking LEMO connector, as with most Teradek products. So that's a nice little security measure there. And powering this up, you'll see that it comes up with Prism by Teradek. Isn't that amazing? That's what this is my Vanna White. This is my Vanna White. This is why I had that.
Don't forget the quarter 20 mount.
Oh, of course. I forgot. Sorry. There's a single quarter 20 mount on the back right here for anybody who wants to stick it on a Noga arm or some sort of arm it off of a camera or fasten it somewhere else.
And I'll say you certainly could do that if that was the only Teradek device you had on hand, but it is a little beefier than some of the alternative the Cube line, and it's probably going to see a lot more use on a desktop next to a fly pack or a master control than I think on a camera.
Yeah, this one here settles right in next to, I have a Motu M4 on my desk, and it essentially looks like a mini, it's the same sort of chassis, just kind of scaled down, so you know, it fits right on the desk really nice. And just for comparison, I have a 755 Cube here, and you can see that, yeah, it's about 30% larger than the original Cube 755 and the 6 series and the series before that. So, but it does give you a bit more options with connectability, interfaces, etc. Wi-Fi. All right, so now that we're powered up, set this off to the side here. Different menus on here. You can scroll through. If you have recording, if you have an SD card set up, it'll tell you how much is left and available on that SD card. So as it comes in, you'll have 29.7 gigs still available. And then when you fill in the recording name, it'll actually show here so you know you're recording to the right thing. Also with this single button, there's a single button on the front end of this. If you hold this down, it will start and stop recording. Since it's not named, it's not going to do that. So it's kind of a fail-safe. You don't want to record stuff without a name. But this button has other effects too, as with, say, the Wi-Fi or your wired Ethernet. If you hold this down, it'll change from DHCP to a static Ethernet. So if you have an instance where you need to be on a certain network, then you can program that in, take the unit away, come back, and easily change those without even getting into the UI. From here, and there's one more failsafe I should talk about too, is from this main menu where it says Prism 855 or the Prism Flex, if you hold this button down, you will do a factory reset on the entire unit. So if you get to a situation where you can't get into the UI, you've locked yourself out, you've messed something up royally, hold that button down, it'll factory reset the box, and then you can jump in and do what you need to do there. Is there anything else you could think about that I didn't go over physically with this?
I think you covered it.
Cool, cool. So this is a 4K UHD 10-bit HDR encoder. This encodes in HEVC or AVC, either, in multiple different flavors. So we have MPEG-TS, we have our Teradek core bonding protocol that it uses. Trying to get to the UI now. And since I'm over Wi-Fi, I can get into the UI, and we'll take that here. So within, this is set up for Teradek Cloud right now, but you have direct RTMP. So if you do need to go out to a CDN, you can go straight to a CDN using this unit, 4K, 10-bit, 8-bit, whatever you want to send out to that end point there. You can also, we also have built-in options for Facebook, YouTube Live, Vimeo, Wowza as well. But it will send MPEG-TS and SRT and RTSP to another decoder or another endpoint of your choosing. Like I said, in internal recording here, I'm going to hook up a source so that we can get the camera source populated in the preview there. And that's just being fed from a Blackmagic Ursa G2, full 4K coming into the system now. So you can see it actually reads the 4K 30. Cloud services are connected through Core. Since this isn't a Cine product, we don't have connection with Frame.io on here, but we're considering things, so there might be integration later. Our input, we have options to set from H.264 to HEVC. You can either set your input to auto, SDI, or HDMI, but when you get to the front end menu, you can actually switch that by using that button as well. So we can set this to SDI. There is a scaler in this, so if you did want to bring this down to say 1920 by 1080, if you're going out to an end destination that only accepted 1080p, then you can scale it down within the box before having to go to another system or finding a scaler in between the encoder and the camera, or the camera and the encoder and the source. A couple different advanced options here that we've added. You know, you can change between 420, 422 chroma. 8 and 10-bit is controlled from here. Your GOP or KFIs, depending on how you're going to do that. How you want to send it out. And then we have embedded analog and mixed audio. So mixed actually brings in the embedded and the analog, so you can mix those two together. So if you have a camera plus an external mic, or not an external mixer or something along those lines, line level input, not mic level input, you can mix those into this box, into this encoder as well. We don't need to go over all the things here. Some of these are self-explanatory. You can set your network priority too. So if you do have two USB modems that you want to use primarily, you can set those at the top, or you know, vice versa. If you wanted to go to a wired network first, or Wi-Fi, you can prioritize those networks here. And with system, you have a bunch of different options for reports and diagnostics as well that you can pull from the device. You can actually set it for HTTPS, so if you are running it on a network that requires some sort of security protocol, you can turn that on as well. And this is where you would update for all the latest firmware and then factory reset this device. So coming back to our 2-up setup here with myself and Ari. You had a chance to use this a little bit. Is there anything that kind of screams out to you or calls out to you when using, you know, the UI that would be nice to have on the front end, or that's missing, or you might?
I think that for first-time users of Teradek products, that, you know, I mean, it's about as straightforward as can be, but you're getting into a new world for some people of networking, and there's a lot of terminology in there. I think adding some hover over brief descriptions of what the different options are, both in the, you know, your choices for your protocol, whether it's MPEG, you know, transport stream or RTMSP or whatever it might be useful, and perhaps even setting some default group, like a live streaming default, a point-to-point default setup, where some of the basics are set for those type of configurations, maybe on a, the novice level as opposed to an expert mode, because it can be daunting. And I will also say, just in general, if this is something you're going out to rent, or you're on a live event, you don't want to be configuring it on set the day of by yourself. You want to have someone that's dedicated to it if possible, or if you're a one-man band, you want to set it up in advance. And also, I can't stress, for live events, the importance of site surveys and tech scouts. And when we do run into issues, it's not the product itself, it's typically infrastructure, whether it's the cell towers at a venue, 100,000 seat stadium. You'll be there for sound check or the site survey and everything's great. Then the doors open and 100,000 people come in and start FaceTiming and everything else, and the cell towers get overwhelmed. So there's things you can do about that. I know the nodes were designed to theoretically leap over the local cell tower and find one that was less congested, which was a big power user feature to surpass what you could do with consumer hotspots. People will sometimes try and start their stream before the crowd arrives and hope to hang on to it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So with that there, how have you used Teradek products in the past? I know we have some stills here that we kind of want to throw to. Is that something you want to describe now? Like, can we use those as sort of a reference then?
Absolutely. So in the early days, before there was the Bolt line, we used the first cubes to do wireless on-set monitoring to an iPad, so that why don't you go through this? This is the Warrior Games at Soldier Field, which was a live, it's like an Olympics for veterans. And just flash through it. It was big multicam setup. This is a typical video village for a corporate live event stream. This happened to be a Darius Rucker concert. On the left there is a Blackmagic 2ME control surface for the switcher, and then in the middle is the FlyPack Guts, which has CCU control and all the routing and everything else. Then we've got, to the right of that, content media servers sending feeds out to, I think we had about 450 cues on 6 different channels. We had LED walls, IMAG screens, LED strips, teleprompters, and so forth. And on the right there is teleprompter. So that's a typical setup where we'd have a desktop unit like the Prism coming off the FlyPack rack. What do we have next? Just another Blackmagic end-to-end multicam. Those are the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K cameras with B4 mounts and nice long lenses on them, in the studio configuration with Blackmagic viewfinders and remote zoom and focus.
Nice.
That's pit dolly, which will typically throw a camera on when the barricades don't go right up to the stage, and that gives a nice pivoting shot on the lead singer or the main speaker if it's a corporate presentation. And then you can see the variety of projection screens and LED wall and strips. The strip's kind of blown out. You can't really see it in this picture, but this is actually the follow-up picture, probably the one after it. This is inside a helicopter. So in this case, we used cubes because it was out of range. This was for the movie Doom 3, which was the biggest budget Bollywood movie ever filmed. It was really fun to work on. There were helicopter chase scenes, motorcycle chases, stuntmen running down the face of skyscrapers.
Lots of second unit.
Yeah, and the stunt coordinator wanted a live feed from the helicopter. So we used, that's an original cube with an original Bond 1 piggybacked on it, and a bunch of USB cellular modems. so that we could, range was not an issue. It's obviously not real time because you've got some delays when you're going cellular as opposed to a bolt, which is less than a frame, but they were still able to get what they needed. And be aware when you go up in a helicopter, after cell towers are aimed where people are at the ground, they're not aimed up. So you will lose connectivity after a certain altitude. Pretty much once you get at just above skyscraper height, you start losing it quickly. So plan for that. There's no such thing as fail proof when you come to wireless. You just have to anticipate, your pitfalls and take whatever mitigative actions that you can.
Right. There's just as much preventative as you possibly can. That's the only.
Right.
There's no. It's always fail.
And well, for example, we'll use USB extender cables and gaff tape the modems to the window as opposed to letting it try and shoot through the metal body of the helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
This is that same movie. This was the motorcycle camera, the camera car for the motorcycle chases. So they had an Ari Alexa mounted on the camera rig, and then in the back, right above the little luggage rack there, you'll see another cube. And same thing, these guys were going all over around buildings. And once you have, a building in between you, bolts, need line of sight. So again, we were cellular with this technology.
Nice. One last one here with the...
This is on the set of Jeepers Creepers 3, and that's the Teradek antenna. Now that's a bolt receiver peeking out behind the monitor. It's a Movi Pro controller. And flying an Alta 8 heavy lifter drone. And that is a real-time feed, and that's how we monitor the camera from the drone, is with the Teradek bolts. That's probably a 2000 there.
Nice. Well, that's what we have for this right now. It looks like you've been pretty deep in, like your bio said, deep into a lot of different veins of production. Let's just say.
Yeah, I'll just mention two other quick uses of it. So we originally, one of our favorites is getting people out of Video Village, getting them away from the DP, the director's monitors. So using a cube on set and giving all the people that need it and some that don't need it but want it anyway, a feed on their iPhone or their iPads is a great use of it. And now, Serve Pro will do that as well as the cubes. And another, it's not all, and of course we use them for streaming, and it's great with the Teradek Cloud service to be able to send multiple CDNs at once. So if it's Facebook and YouTube Live and Twitch or whatever. But one thing people often don't think about, and this is a use we do, several times a year for repeat clients and whenever else it comes up, we often have to get video from one end of like the Chicago Convention Center, McCormick Place, to the other end. Mm-hmm. And you don't want any delay. So we're using their internal network without internet, and we're doing point to point. So we'll use a cube transmitter and a cube decoder to use the existing infrastructure, but not rely on any kind of wireless. And that gives a very fast, very clean, high-res signal to get you from one end to the other.
Mm-hmm. And this, for everybody's knowledge here, Prism Flex is essentially a Cube 855. We changed the name up. We're offering something a little different. It's the same guts that exist in the Prism rack mount cards. So the high-end rack mount, very consolidated encoder, decoder setup is now the same guts that's in this Prism Flex. So it's a cube by every sense of the word. It just looks a little different, but it does exactly the same sort of thing. There's a couple questions that we have here. One from Scott Clemens. Can this crop a video signal to a portrait setting 1080 by 1920 for RTMP to a platform like TikTok? So this setting inside the UI is just scaling. It doesn't do cropping. We've had some interest in there, so I know it's something that's in the backlog right now. But we're kind of prioritizing that as it needs to be. So there's been some push on that.
A comment on that.
Yeah.
That typically in those situations we would do that on the switcher end, and or whether it's a hardware switcher or even a content server that's acting like a software switcher, because we would often be going to two different aspect ratios. We might be going YouTube Live at a horizontal aspect ratio, and then Periscope, which is vertical. So the cameras are protecting what they're shooting, but you're dealing with a full frame, originally, and then we're sending out, maybe a clean feed or two different aspect ratios to two different encoders. So the cropping is done, and prior to hitting the
Sure.
device.
Another option too is if cropping does get into the Flex, you can loop in and out of one and do a horizontal feed out of one and a vertical feed out of a different one. You would just have to make sure that your safe areas and stuff are kind of marked where that vertical is going to live. So.
Yeah, and that is a great feature of the Flex, that it has the loop, because the older models don't have loop. You're one in and you're one and done.
Right, and I mean, to me, this is, when talking to colleagues or old colleagues now that I work for Teradek, but talking to video engineers and technical directors in the field, one of the biggest complaints is I don't want to just change my entire workflow because I have something that's working. I have a 1080p out, we have that workflow, it's going to stream. If I introduce something into this, is it going to screw up that workflow? I have clients tomorrow, I have clients next week. I'm not going to change my workflow right now and have it affect clients for the next couple months. The great thing about Flex is you just loop in and out of it, and it doesn't affect your current workflow. You just add another device to it. So it's kind of easy to get into that 4K game, is what I'm leading into, instead of having to cut bait at an end device and change to something else that you're not used to. I don't know if you agree or not, Ari.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not only our workflow, but oftentimes we're being added to a client's workflow, and they don't like their workflow changed, especially at the last minute either.
Not at all. Not at all. Let's get back to the questions here. A question from Chris Trainer. What are the significant differences between this and the cube line? Would there be any purpose to continuing to invest in Cube 755, or is the Prism the next evolution? Yes, Prism is the next evolution. The 755 is going to reach end of life in the next 2 years. We can't support old technology and old hardware, and we need to move on to the next best, biggest thing. And having this flexibility and future-proofing, if you will, with having 4K built into this device, you can still send 1080 to this. You can send 720 to this. You can do whatever you want with this, but you still have that availability to move up to 4K when you need it. Or as those clients come through and they need certain things like 10-bit or HDR, et cetera, whatever that is, you have a multi-tool that can do those things.
I had to laugh about the end of life. I mean, you guys might not be pushing it anymore. We still have Cube 155s in service and working on jobs. It's all about the use case. Mm-hmm. So if you're starting if you don't have anything, you're going to buy it, sure. But yeah, and if your primary function is to mount it on a camera, and that's it, it depends, what you want it to do, and obviously that one will do pretty much everything. You're just, paying a little bit of price on weight, but there are smaller options depending on how specific your needs are.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's, of course, you always come back to like, what do I really need this for? If I need it on a camera and I need it light and I need it robust, I'm gonna, get something that's a bit lighter that could stick on top of a handle or something or stay out of the way. So yeah, the other differences, this has what's called store and forward. So a new technology within the Prism Flex is when you record to the Flex itself, whether you're on network or not, if you're recording to that SD card, as you get connected to Core, as you come back onto the network, it will chunk that file up and send it to Core and house it there. It doesn't need to have a consistent connection. If you break connection, it will know where it's at and then pick up where it left off and send the rest of the file up to Core once it's all there. Once the file's all there and connected, then you're able to download and transcode and playback and do all the Core functions that you could normally do. This just has more of a safety net when it comes to uploading high-res files, large files over unstable networks. So.
Right, which is great compared to most of the other options where if you have an error or you have to start from scratch again.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Start all over.
And a 40 gig file or whatever that is takes a long time, depending. Doesn't depend on the network, it's still a big file. So, let's see if there's any other questions. We don't have any other questions. Nobody else wants to talk to us about anything? You want to talk about saxophones and ultra endurance and adventure racing? But we could, you know what we could talk about is the 4K Blackmagic end-to-end solution that we kind of touched a little bit on earlier, and then yesterday we talked about. I have friends that own companies that have a complete 4K workflow except for their end encoding. They get everything to the switcher in 4K, and then at the end they need to transcode it into something else because the CDN doesn't take that, or they don't need that, or whatever. Does this provide even more flexibility in what you do with the encoding side and carrying through that full 4K HDR signal? Because these Blackmagic Ursas have a very nice image, and we try not to sacrifice that, right?
Right, and yeah, full disclosure, we are also the Blackmagic dealer, and I'm a beta tester for the cameras as well. But I shoot with two cameras. I shoot with Ari Alexas, with my name, I have to name my daughter Alexa, and made her a onesie with the logo on it with one R. And we shoot with Blackmagic. I will never touch a red again if I don't have to. But the point is, with the Blackmagic workflow, we much prefer the old school method of hardware appliances for everything you can. So it's cameras going into a physical switcher. Things are separated as opposed to, like your TriCaster environment where all your eggs are in one basket. When it crashes because it's on Windows, everything goes down, including your program records. And also by segmenting it, you can have more people operating the things independently as opposed to trying to have one TD get overwhelmed with tasks. When we get to the output, I'm not a fan of software encoders for a variety of reasons. And we have some clients that do want that they have the reasons for wanting to do it that way, in which case we use the Link Pro backpacks to provide a bonded internet for them. But in some cases, they've even realized they'd rather have the hardware encoding, so they've used their Wirecast as a software switcher and then taken a video out of that and sent it into our Bond Pro backpack or bonding system. And in one case, because they wanted to go to multiple CDNs, they couldn't do that easily with their Wirecast setup. So it was a no-brainer with the Teradek cloud.
Okay.
But yeah, having hardware appliances makes a lot more sense to us. And
right, awesome. Yeah, you gotta break it up a little bit right now. And I shouldn't talk too loud because everything right now is running off a Windows machine on vMix right now. So let's not talk too bad about it because it might just jinx us anyway. I want to bring up our order now button. This actually this phone number is active. It goes to a real salesperson that will pick up the phone. Hopefully he'll pick up the phone. He said he'd pick up the phone. So ask him questions too if you don't want to ask questions over the chat. His name is John. He's a real nice guy. He'll sell you all kinds of stuff. I'm sure of it. We have one last question.
In terms of sales, we do sales for the Teradek line as well, and rent pretty much everything in the product line. And usually the first half of that is consulting with the clients on what they're trying to do. Sometimes somebody told them they need to go get a Teradek, but they don't know what model or piece they need. And so it's, okay, what do you need to accomplish? And we get them the right hardware. We hook them up with, sell SIM cards with data plans that already exist and give them the estimates on how much data they're going to use based on what they're doing. So people can call us and we'll give them our advice on the right route to go.
Nice. Well, let's we can add your title up here. Here's their phone number for Atomic Imaging. If you need any questions answered, he sells Teradek as well, like he said. All right, we have a few more questions coming in, which is great. I'm going to bounce back to this thing so I can ping John's phone because I told him he was going to get a ton of phone calls. So if he doesn't, he's going to be mad at me. Question from Miguel. Miguel Angel Meza, is the future for what is the future for bond, essentially, bonding and core. So this is not the only future for bond. We're kind of kicking around the idea of the backpacks-ish still, because there's a lot of need for them. Ari, yourself, you use those all the time. I was just on a race at Circuit of the Americas where they used bond backpack as well in the car. So there's definitely a use case there for them. What do you think the future is for that? Do we make something that's the same size? Do we put it in a fanny pack? Like, is fanny packs going to come back with a new bond system and with antennas sticking out of them and stuff? I mean,
along with the mullet ponytails.
Yeah, like dip back to like late 70s.
The backpack is, I understand for your news crews that are replacing, satellite feeds, they're going to wear it. Motorcycle chase for marathons and bike races, they're going to wear it. We use it all the time, and I don't know that anyone on our crew has ever actually worn it other than getting it to and from the location. But it's a great, protective environment for it. In being, in the past when you had all the USB cellular modem sticks hanging off a Bond 2, it's precarious and cumbersome. Now you throw it on the ground next to the tripod or stick it on a C-stand and boost it up in the air. But it's just a nice self-contained environment. You can keep extra, network cables and V-mount battery in there as well.
Bars, all kinds of stuff. Bananas, any sort of fruit, drinks. No, it serves multi-purpose for sure. The way that I think having most of the appliance in a single appliance, just having all the bonded, all the cell modems, all the connections that you need there, and with an Anton Bauer, some sort of gold mount, V mount to power the thing, great. The less connections, the less things hanging off the side of this, the better, right? We don't want to just keep adding crap to it, because I know too many Steadicam operators that are like, no, get it off of my rig. I don't want all of that gack hanging around. So it's good to hear. We're still considering that, Miguel, and we'll update you when we have something that we're going to go to. Albert Jean Van, I can't speak French. I'm sorry. I don't want to butcher that. Hey guys, Prism 853 user, dual units. Every manual says these units can bond, but I've never seen this work, and I don't want to go for the core subscription yet before I know it's actually working for bonding. So here's the good thing. Get in touch with me. I'll set you up some core credits, and then you can try it. Very easy. We're more than welcome. We more than welcome like anybody coming in to say, hey, I want to try this. I don't want to buy it first, but we'll give you some credits. The 853 and the card-based don't have a lot of options for bonding. You have to literally take two different ISPs on those cards, because each one of them has dual NIC, right? And have two different ISPs going out to the core cloud. So with this, having a modem hooked up to it, and Wi-Fi and Ethernet, you have a bunch of different options you can actually plug in. Some existing USB modems will work with USB-C to USB-A. Our website has more information on that. I don't have that handy. But bonding in that sense, you go up to Core Cloud. If you want to try it, get in touch with our sales or send me an email, and I'll let you know how we can test that out for you. Chris Trainer. Should have used AirMix on an iPad Pro. Yeah. This actually does use AirMix, and you can send it to viewer. So Prism does come with AirMix setting. It will output on the same network. So for those of you that want to put it on a camera and have really low latency viewing on an iPhone or an iPad, it still does that. So, that wasn't on the list of things, but it's still there. Second question from Albert. So tried using the 2.5 version. I mentioned recording via LAN to the network share. Didn't see the record function in my Prisms. Flex does it on SD cards. Prisms don't have USB SD card yet. So I will have to check on that. As far as I know, NFS network file shares were enabled for recording on all of the Prism devices. So I will double check and get back to you on that one. Can Prism, one more question. I'm just going to not ruin anybody's name. How about that? Sorry. I'm not going to call you by name, but I don't want to mess it up either. Can Prism broadcast live in HDR on YouTube? HDR on YouTube requires HLS push. So if you wanted to get from a device to YouTube in HDR, you would need HLS push. Currently, this device does not support HLS push, but it is high on the roadmap, I'll say that. There's not a definitive time when we're going to do that, but there's been a lot of noise about it, so we're definitely we're gonna try and push that forward as well. Camera mount options for Prism Flex. Should we go over the camera mount options
Corner 20.
again?
It's corner 20.
And here we go.
It's
Here is, I'm going to pull the call to action out too. There you go. There is a quarter 20 right there. The rest of these are screw hole mounts. And this looks like it can take kind of, what are those Sony rosettes that we put on the wave legs? Those could possibly go there too, but I'm not sure about that. But it does say quarter 20, so it's totally official. Officially quarter 20. Any more
I have
questions?
a question.
Yes, sir. What do you got?
If anybody out there is interested in seeing a bi-directional bolt unit so you could have wireless camera control, please email Teradek with that feature request, as well as if you want on-set recording capability and playback. So if that interests people, send in those requests.
All right. So one more from Michael Anderson. See, now I can, I will explain how to use the Prism Flex as a remote camera to a central studio. So if you have Flex out in the wild, say I'm a news reporter and I have my camera set up SDI into Prism Flex. I have 2 nodes on that Prism Flex, node 2s, that are bonded and going up to core. So from core, I can send, from core, when those are bonded, so you want to have that be a bonded signal so you have that robust pipe going up. Once it hits core, then I can send just a direct and send it to a Sputnik server. I can send an SRT feed directly to you from that Sputnik server. So when you fire up a Sputnik and you ingest this signal, it's going to lay out MPEG-TS, SRT, RTSP, an HLS endpoint. So it'll give you the M3U8 link, as well as one other version, maybe Teradek Core. So from there, you can actually send it to any sort of SRT decoder that you want, whether it's high vision or I prefer to be this Teradek unit here. But you can send that SRT. You send it to any decoder in SRT, right, and then you can decode that there at your station. So that's an easy, like, get it back to the station sort of thing. If you have Wi-Fi and Ethernet, you're doing even better, but still, this is going to use cell modems to get that back over the air.
You know, I forgot, I don't know if we had a chance to test it. Does Prism have IFB on it like the older cubes or not?
Not currently. It's still in the works. We're trying to get that's part of our audio push right now. I'm trying to push audio a little bit heavier. I come from doing rock concerts and sound, heavy sound influenced live streams. So, and you come from symphonies and everything else. So I'm trying to push a bit more of the audio functionality into these devices. We do video really, really well. We need to match that with the audio side. So IFB is one of those things that we're still kind of ironing out, and how it works and how it's switched and controlled within the system. And updates will come out with those features as we kind of go along and determine how those need to roll out.
Yeah, it was a useful feature on the older models, and certainly all the networks that were using them in those field news crew types found that useful. Instead of being on a cell phone and wrangling that as well, they just plug a earbud into the decoder, into the encoder on the camera, and then they had an IFB feed to the master control.
Right, just right in their ear. Yeah, that's the reason why we're not waffling on this or anything, but we're trying to gain interest because there's a lot of different systems that people use for IFB. So it's not just this one use case that everybody uses the same exact way. So trying to gauge whether or not we need to put the work in to add that to the system and at what level, or is it a moot point because there's so many different systems that people can already incorporate with that we don't need to to spend the engineering time there, and it'd be rather spent doing something else. What's for HLS? So Albert, I'm trying to read these comments. Sorry, just so everybody knows, I'm doing this from my house. I have one guy helping me over here who's doing a very good job, but the rest of it is me switching by myself and reading text. So fun times. Talk amongst yourselves. This is coffee talk. Anybody get that reference? No? Like I said, this was going to be off the cuff and kind of relaxed. All right.
I'm relaxed.
All right. Shading. Another comment from Albert. SRT to vMix. Tried it 1-to-1. Worked flawless. All right. Thanks, Albert. That's great. So if there's no more comments, we've been going for 45 minutes. Didn't feel like that. But is there anything else that you'd like to add, Ari, before we sign off here? Below is Ari's information.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to join you guys, and hope everybody got something out of this, and look forward to seeing the, refinements and the evolution in the GUI, and especially that multi-track audio. So I think that'll get a lot of interest when it comes out.
Yeah, that's going to be coming out soon. So again, anybody who wants to ping our sales guy, go ahead and do that. Save this number for late nights ordering pizzas, sending him weird text messages. He loves
calls.
He loves that kind of stuff.
Tell him Derek and Ari sent you.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Thank you for your time today. Ari, thank you for joining us. And I look forward to working with you in the future. And stay tuned, everybody. I'm trying to do this more often. If you guys have things that you want to talk about, if there are pain points that you're experiencing in the industry, which I know there are all the time, and they change, put them in the chat, put them in the Facebook group, put them in the YouTube group, whatever point of contact you have, reach out to us. I'm here listening, trying to determine what the best use case is going forward. So we're here for you. Let's do this the right way. We're going to try and do these webinars a bit more often, so we can talk and have feedback and do this more off the cuff like we're doing today. So for everybody out there, thank you very much. Thanks for joining. And you can kill the stream if you want. Thank you, sir.